The sun on Lyria Prime always shone like soft gold, and the floating lake sparkled under it like giant mirrors. Every day, tourists from many worlds came to see the crystal platforms that hovered just above the water. They took pictures, bought food from stalls, and walked along the glowing edges to watch the waves rise and fall below. Marcus, a human traveler, stood near the center of the crowd. He had arrived only a week ago, and he loved the calm beauty of the lakes. The platforms were strange to him, but he liked how they hummed lightly under his feet. He was taking slow steps, enjoying the warm breeze, when a sharp sound echoed across the lake. A thin crack formed on one of the distant platforms. A young alien girl stood there. She looked small, her skin glowing faint blue, and her clothes fluttering in the wind. She had been leaning forward, trying to look into the lake's depths. Her parents had told her to stay close earlier, but like many young children, she had wandered too far. The crack grew wider. People nearby noticed and stepped back. Some pointed, unsure what to do. A few gasped, but no one moved toward her. The girl turned around confused, and the fragile floor beneath her feet split completely. She fell into the deep water. The lake was beautiful, but it was dangerous. The water was thick and heavy, and most species on Lyria Prime could not swim in it. The girl surfaced for a moment, her arms waving weakly. She tried to cry out, but the water pulled her down again. The crowd reacted, but not in the way Marcus expected. Many pulled out their devices, recording the scene. Some shouted for help, but no one stepped forward. Their culture did not encourage quick action. They always waited for the right authority to arrive. They always believed someone else would take responsibility. Marcus felt something twist inside him. He took a step forward. No one else did. The girl came up again, struggling. Her tiny hands slapped at the surface, trying to find anything to hold on to. Her voice was a weak, frightened sound. The water pulled her down once more. Marcus's heart pounded. He looked around, but every face showed the same expression, uncertainty. Everyone seemed frozen. Another moment passed. Marcus could not stand it anymore. He ran toward the edge of the crystal platform, pushing past a few shocked tourists. "She's drowning," he shouted. "Is anyone going to help?" No one answered. Some backed away as if his shout alone was too loud for the peaceful atmosphere of the lake. The girl surfaced again, her eyes wide and desperate. For a second, she looked straight at Marcus. That one moment broke any hesitation left inside him. He threw off his shoes and sprinted the last few steps. The crowd gasped as he jumped. The water was colder than he expected. It closed over his head like a heavy blanket. He kicked upward and broke the surface, taking a breath and searching for the girl. She was only a few meters away now, sinking slowly, her movements weaker each second. Marcus swam toward her with strong strokes. He had learned to swim when he was only 5, and even though this water felt different, he fought against it with everything he had. He reached out, but she slipped just out of reach. "Grab my hand," he shouted. The girl heard him and tried again. Her fingers brushed his for a moment. He kicked harder, pushed himself forward, and finally caught her wrist. She clung to him with all her strength. The crowd watched in silence. Marcus pulled her close and tried to lift her higher, but the water dragged them both down. He tightened his grip around her and started kicking toward the platform. It felt slow, too slow, but he did not stop. Inch by inch, he moved through the heavy lake. A few aliens at the edge seemed to realize they should help. 2 reached out toward him hesitantly. Then more followed. Hands stretched toward him, not brave enough to jump, but brave enough now to pull. Marcus reached the edge, breathless and shaking. The helpers grabbed the girl first, lifting her out of the water. Then they pulled Marcus up too. He collapsed on the platform, coughing hard, water dripping from his hair and clothes. The girl lay next to him, breathing fast but safe. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked at Marcus again. This time, there was no fear, only gratitude. The crowd around them slowly lowered their devices. Some looked ashamed. Some looked amazed. Some whispered to each other, confused about what had just happened. Marcus lay on his back, staring up at the bright sky. He had not planned to be a hero. He had not even thought. He had simply seen a child who needed help. And no matter what world he was on, That was enough. The platform was still shaking from the rescue when the crowd finally began to move again. Some people whispered to each other. Some stared at Marcus with wide eyes, and others simply walked away, unsure what they had witnessed. The alien girl sat wrapped in a silver thermal cloth the lake guards had brought. Her small hands trembled, but her breathing was steady now. Marcus sat beside her, dripping water everywhere. His clothes clung to him, and he shivered a little in the cool wind. He looked around, expecting someone, maybe her parents, maybe a guardian, to rush in and take her home. But no one came. The guards questioned him instead. "What made you jump?" one asked, his voice calm but confused. "You acted without waiting for guidance." Marcus blinked. Because she was drowning. The guard tilted his head slightly, like Marcus's answer was a puzzle. But the response unit was already called. Help would have arrived within 3 minutes. 3 minutes? Marcus said, his voice rising. She didn't have 3 minutes. The guard didn't argue, but his expression showed he didn't fully understand. The alien girl turned her head toward Marcus. Her soft blue skin shimmered in the light, and her eyes, large and bright silver, watched him carefully. She tugged gently at the edge of the cloth and whispered something to one of the guards in her musical language. The guard nodded and looked at Marcus. "She wants to speak to you." Marcus leaned closer, unsure. "You saved me," the girl said slowly, using her best attempt at human words. "Why did you?" He gave a small, tired smile. "Because you needed help. That's all." The girl blinked, clearly surprised, but everyone else was afraid. Marcus looked at the crowd still hovering at a distance. Many were staring at him as though he had broken some rule. Maybe he had. Maybe this world really did prefer stillness over action. But he just shrugged. Sometimes someone needs to move first. The girl stared at him for another long moment, as if memorizing his face. A soft hum filled the air as the medical skimmer arrived. A pair of healers stepped out and examined the girl closely. They nodded, satisfied, and prepared her for transport. Before they lifted her onto the skimmer, she turned again toward Marcus. She reached out her small hand, and without thinking, Marcus reached back, squeezing it gently. The healers lifted her away, and the skimmer floated into the air, carrying her toward the city towers in the distance. For a moment, Marcus felt alone on the platform, surrounded by strangers who didn't know what to say. Then someone finally approached him. It was an older alien, with soft gold skin and long markings on his face that showed his age. He walked with a slow, thoughtful step and stopped directly in front of Marcus. "You are human," the elder said. "Yes," Marcus replied. "I have heard your kind acts fast," the elder continued, "but I did not expect to see it with my own eyes." Marcus wasn't sure how to respond. She needed help. The elder studied him for a long moment. "Our people wait for authority, for order, for instructions. It is our way. But today you jumped. Today you showed something." He paused, searching for the right word. "Different." Marcus didn't know if that was praise or a warning. The elder bowed his head slightly. "For the child's sake, thank you." Then he walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone again. A few younger aliens slowly approached him next. They looked shy, unsure how to act, but their voices were full of curiosity. "Were you scared?" one asked. "Did the water hurt?" Another asked. "Can all humans swim like that?" Marcus laughed softly. "Not all humans, but many, yeah." The group listened with wide eyes, fascinated as if he were telling a story from a distant legend. Marcus answered their questions until they drifted away one by one, leaving him in the quiet of the lakeside. He finally sat down near the water's edge, letting his wet shoes rest in the sun. The lake was calm again, smooth as glass. You would never guess someone had almost died there an hour ago. Marcus sighed and closed his eyes. He had traveled across the galaxy to see new worlds, not to become the center of attention. But sometimes life didn't follow plans. He didn't know why everyone else had frozen in fear. He didn't know why they waited instead of helping. He didn't know why he was the only one who moved. But he did know one thing. He would do it again. If he saw someone suffering, human, alien, anyone, he would jump first. And somewhere in the city, a young alien girl rested safely, her heart still beating because a human traveler had chosen action over silence. Marcus didn't think he was a hero, but on this world, he was the first one to show what a human could be. Marcus woke early the next morning, still tired from the day before, but his mind was sharp. He stepped out into the bright street, expecting to blend back into the quiet life of a traveler. Instead, every alien he passed seemed to stare at him. Some watched him with curiosity. Some whispered behind their hands. A few even stepped out his way, as if he were dangerous. Marcus kept walking, pretending not to notice. He didn't like attention. He was just a simple guy traveling the galaxy with a backpack and a half-broken communicator. He wasn't a hero, and he didn't want to be one. But the city had changed overnight. At a small food stall, the alien worker froze when she recognized him. Her eyes grew wide. "You are the human who jumped into the lake," she said slowly. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, that was me." She handed him his drink, but kept staring. "Why did you do it?" The guards were coming. "She was drowning," Marcus said, confused why everyone kept asking the same thing. "I didn't have time to wait." The worker looked down at the counter. "Most of us do not act without permission. We fear making mistakes." Marcus sighed. "It's okay to be afraid, but it's worse to let someone die." The worker thought about that for a long time before nodding. As Marcus walked away with his drink, he noticed a strange thing. Some aliens followed him from a distance, almost like they were studying him. They didn't talk, didn't come close. They just watched. He tried to ignore them, but the feeling crawled under his skin. By midday, the whispers grew louder. Groups gathered on street corners, showing images on their screens. Marcus glimpsed a few, blurry pictures of him diving into the water, pulling a girl up, shouting for help. He frowned. He hadn't known anyone was recording. Near the city square, a few aliens stood in a circle around a screen, pointing and talking fast. When Marcus walked by, the screen changed instantly. The group fell silent. "That's him," someone whispered. Another stepped forward. "Human, do you always act alone? Do all your people jump into danger?" Marcus didn't know how to answer. "Not all, but many help when someone needs it." The aliens exchanged uncertain looks. Their world didn't work that way. Their people waited for orders, trusted rules, trusted leaders. Someone acting on their own was strange. Someone risking their life without being told was even stranger. Marcus didn't blame them. Different world, different thinking. But it still made him feel like an outsider. He left the crowd and walked toward the quiet park near the edge of the city. The air smelled of metal and flowers, a strange mix he had gotten used to. He sat on a bench, hoping for a moment of peace. But the peace ended when a small group of young aliens approached him carefully. "You are the human from the lake," one said. "Our parents told us not to talk to you. They say you are unpredictable." Marcus laughed once, without humor. "Unpredictable? I just helped someone." "They say that is the problem." Another said softly, "No one knows when you will act or why." Marcus looked at their young, curious faces. They didn't seem scared, only confused. He leaned forward. "Let me tell you something. Humans don't act because someone tells them to. We act because our heart tells us somebody needs help. It's not dangerous. It's just normal." The kids looked at each other like they were hearing something completely new. One stepped closer. "Would you help us too, if we were in danger?" Marcus smiled. "Of course." The kids nodded slowly, thinking deeply. Then they ran off, talking excitedly to each other. Marcus leaned back and sighed. He wanted to feel good about the conversation, but the weight in his chest only grew heavier. On this planet, kindness wasn't normal. It was confusing. Action wasn't bravery. It was chaos. He didn't fit here. As the sun began to set, Marcus decided to head back to his small room at the Traveler's Lodge. But when he arrived, the manager stood waiting at the door, eyes wide and nervous. "Human Marcus," the manager said, voice shaking. "There was a message for you." "A message?" Marcus asked. "From who?" The manager turned slightly pale. "From the ruling council." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What do they want?" They want to speak with you. They say your actions yesterday have caused great discussion. Some think you are a hero, the manager said quietly. Others think you're a danger. Marcus stared at the note in his hand, feeling the air grow heavy around him. He had jumped into a lake to save a child, and now an entire world didn't know what to do with him. Marcus took a deep breath. He wasn't afraid of water. He wasn't afraid of holding on to a drowning girl. But speaking to the rulers of an alien world, that was another kind of deep, another kind of drowning. Still, he knew one thing. He wouldn't run. If they wanted answers, he would give them, even if the world didn't understand him yet. The news spread faster than anyone expected. By the next morning, Marcus's jump into the lake had reached every corner of the planet. Screens across cities replayed the same shaky footage. The alien girl sinking, the crowd watching, and one human diving in without hesitation. People didn't talk about the rescue. They talked about the moment he jumped. Some aliens watched the video with fear, some with awe, and some with confusion. The whole planet seemed to stop and ask the same question. Why would a human do that? In a floating city above the clouds, teachers paused their lessons to show the video. Students leaned forward, eyes wide. Many had never even seen a human before. One student whispered, "Will we have done that?" No one answered. Deep underground, in a mining colony, workers rested in silence as a clip played on their shared screen. These were hardened people, used to danger, used to following strict rules. They watched Marcus hit the water the same way he hit them, with force. "You see that?" one miner said. He didn't even think. Or maybe thinking wasn't needed, another replied. On the warm desert plains, a group of travelers stopped their long journey to discuss the event. They believed in structure and calm. They believed in measuring every step. The idea of someone acting on instinct made them uneasy. "This human," one said slowly, "is a sign of chaos." "No," another argued. "He might be a sign of something we forgot." Even on the ocean farms, where workers lived beside strange glowing fish, the rescue was the main topic. One worker pointed at the screen and shook their head. He risked his life for one girl, one stranger. "I don't understand." Beside him, an older worker smiled gently. "Maybe that is why you and I do not jump." But the human, he jumped because he didn't care about the number. He cared about the life. Across the planet, people were unsure how to feel. The story struck something deep inside them. It was exciting, frightening, and inspiring. It made some feel weak and others feel brave. It made many question their own world. Parents whispered to each other at night. Teachers rewrote their lessons. Leaders argued behind closed doors. Some said the human was a threat. Some said he was a hero. Some said he was both. But something else started happening too. A small movement began, first invisible, then noticeable. It wasn't a group or a rebellion. It was something softer, a shift in thinking. On one side of the ocean, a young alien saw a stranger struggling to carry heavy boxes. He remembered the video of Marcus, remembered the way the human didn't wait for someone else to act. So the young alien stepped forward and helped without being told. The stranger stared at him, surprised. "Why did you do that?" The young alien hesitated. "I saw someone else do something like this." In another city, an elderly alien tripped on the stairs of a marketplace. Normally, people would wait for an official assistant, but a small group rushed forward, grabbing her arms gently, lifting her to her feet. When she thanked them, one replied shyly, "We just thought maybe it's okay to act first." These tiny changes spread everywhere. They were the ripples from the lake. Back near the capital, at a medical center, the alien girl Marcus had saved was finally able to speak. Her voice was weak, but her words traveled far. "He saved me," she said. "He didn't know me, but he saved me anyway." Her parents stood by her side, filled with shame and gratitude. They had watched the video too. It hurt them deeply to see their daughter drowning, while dozens stood frozen. "This human," her father said slowly, "showed us what courage is." Her mother nodded, tears in her eyes. "And what kindness is." Their interview was broadcast across the planet, reaching homes, schools, markets, and stations. People began to wonder what they would have done if they were there. Something like their own answer. Meanwhile, Marcus stayed inside his small room at the Traveler's Lodge, unaware of the storm he had created. He had slept poorly, thinking about his meeting with the ruling council. He had no idea how the planet now spoke his name. Outside the lodge, a quiet crowd gathered. They didn't shout or cheer. They simply waited, hoping to see him, hoping to understand him. Some wanted to thank him. Some wanted to learn from him. Some wanted to question him. But all of them felt the same thing. Their world wasn't the same as before. The lake had become a symbol. The jump had become a lesson. The human had become something none of them expected. A mirror, a challenge, a ripple that reached every heart, whether they welcomed it or feared it. By nightfall, the planet was divided, but awake in a way it hadn't been for generations. And far away, at the top of the ruling tower, the leaders watched reactions with uneasy eyes. The rescue had not just saved one life. It had shaken an entire world, and the council knew they could no longer ignore the human who started it. The day Marcus was called before the ruling council, the whole planet seemed to hold its breath. The sky above the capital city was quiet, and crowds outside stood in long lines, waiting for any sign of what would happen next. They whispered to each other, wondering if this human, this stranger, would be punished, honored, or simply sent away. Marcus walked through the tall silver doors of the council hall with steady steps. He had saved a girl, but he had also broken their laws. He didn't know what they would decide, and he didn't pretend to be brave. His hand shook a little, but he kept moving. Someone had to. Inside the hall, 12 council members sat in a circle. Their robes were bright and folded perfectly. Their expressions were calm, but their eyes were sharp. They had watched the rescue many times. Half of them saw danger in his actions. The other half saw something the planet had forgotten long ago. The high chairperson spoke first, her voice clear and cold. Human Marcus, you acted without order. You acted against protocol. And you risked your life in a way that is not allowed on our world. Marcus nodded. I did. Why? She asked. There was silence. Even the guards at the doors leaned forward. Marcus looked around the room and took a slow breath. Because someone needed help. Because she was scared. Because she was drowning. And because she was a child. A few council members exchanged looks, confused, surprised, thoughtful. One of them asked, "But why would you risk your life for her? She is not your species." Marcus didn't hesitate. Because life is life. That's enough. The hall fell silent again, but this time the silence felt different. It felt warm, almost painful, like something old and buried was being uncovered. Before the council could decide anything, the doors opened suddenly. The young alien girl he saved walked in, supported by her parents. The guards tried to stop her, but the council raised their hands to let her through. She stepped toward Marcus, her movement slow but determined. "You saved me," she said. Her voice trembled. "You saved me when everyone else watched." Marcus tried to answer, but she shook her head gently. "No one told you to jump. No rule said you must. But you jumped anyway." She turned to the council. "That is not danger. That is kindness. That is courage." Her parents nodded firmly behind her. They were not important people. They had no power in the council, but their words carried more weight than anyone expected. The council whispered among themselves. The world outside waited for their choice. After a long time, the high chairperson stood. "Human Marcus," she said softly, "you broke our laws because our laws failed to protect a life." She looked at the other members. They nodded. "We will change them." Gasps filled the hall. Even Marcus's eyes widened. "For generations, we have feared action without direction," she continued. "We have taught caution so well that we have forgotten compassion. Your actions remind us of what we lost." Another member added, "Your rescue has changed how we see ourselves and how our children will see us." The high chairperson raised her hand. "From this day on, immediate aid in emergencies will no longer be forbidden. We encourage every citizen to act when a life is in danger." The vote passed. The decision spread across the planet within minutes. Outside, The crowd heard the announcement and broke into cheers, not loud or wild, but full of relief, like a long storm had finally ended. For the first time in many years, they felt something new growing in their hearts. Marcus stepped out of the hall to find the girl's family waiting for him. Her parents bowed deeply. The girl hugged him tightly. He wasn't sure what to say, so he simply held her gently and smiled. Soon, messages from across the planet began arriving. People thanked him. People told him stories of small brave acts inspired by him. A student who helped a stranger. A worker who saved someone from falling. A merchant who ran to pick up a child who had slipped on the edge of a fountain. Little moments, but they added up. The shorelines of lakes began to change too. What used to be silent and rigid places slowly filled with signs, posts, and safety devices. Things the planet never used before. Some volunteers began rescue training. New rules encouraged teamwork. Even statues were built near the Great Lake. One of the alien girls, small and bright-eyed, and one of Marcus mid-jump, hand outstretched. Marcus didn't think he had changed anything, but the people knew the truth. He had changed their world by changing one moment. He had changed their laws by saving one life. He had changed their future by showing them how to act. The shorelines of the planet were no longer places of fear. They became symbols of hope, because one human decided not to stand still. Marcus never asked for praise. He never asked for honor. He simply walked the lakeside one last time, smiling as he saw children playing near the water. He left the world a little kinder than he found it. And on that planet, his footsteps shaped the future in ways no one could ever forget.